When he turned his back from shoulder to shoulder, it looked like as wide as the tailgate of a truck.
And just darkness, literal darkness, just came like all over, just all over me except where I was standing.
This thing let out the most blood-curdling, mind-blowing, spine-tingling scream that you've ever heard in your life, and it cut through me like a knife.
And I knew that they were going to take me. I just knew it. And then the next thing I can remember is being levitated.
Well, when I look in there, I see two big eyes staring back at me.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Bump Podcast, a place for the believers of the unexplained, monsters, and paranormal. Join us, and we'll go face to face with what goes bump in the night.
Hey there, believers. I got another good episode for you this week. This week, we're bringing on Harrison and Lowell from the Silver Pilled podcast. These guys are awesome. They have a new show. Okay, it just started in December, I believe, late December, right before Christmas. But I was telling my wife, I think this show has legs. You know, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 2.5 years now, something, three years. Gosh, 3 years. And, I've seen a lot of shows come and go. We've kind of, somehow I've scratched along and not given up on it yet. But these guys got something good. They've had some big name guests, like right out the gate. I don't know where these guys came from, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of the way Blurry Creatures got started. They're just like with big hitters right out the box. These guys have had on Dark Waters, Dr. Judd Burton. They've had L.A. Marzulli, the guys from Appalachian Intelligence podcast, and Justin and them. They've had them on the show. And like I said, and that's just since December. So they're on a good path. They got a good theme song. I've listened to several of their episodes. Loved it. They're good, and they're brothers, so they got that natural chemistry that I think helps a lot. But we'll go ahead and bring them on the show here in just a second. But first, I wanted to remind everybody, if you have something that you want to talk about, you can email me at thebumppodcast@gmail.com, or I'm trying to extend this invitation to everybody to use the Bump phone. Okay, call me. Leave me a voicemail. If it's something short that you want added to the show, leave me a voicemail. I'll see if I can figure out how to get that converted onto the show. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard. Text me. Leave me your information. If you just want to send some memes, we can do that. I like memes. Just whatever. The phone number is 304-812-0553. It's 304-812-0553. I tried to get some kind of catchy number, didn't work. Okay. Also, if you are an author or an artist, you want something to put on the wall back here, or you want me to do a book review, I've done a whole bunch of those for people, on and off air. You can send whatever you want to the Bump Podcast at P.O. Box 1453. Chapmanville, West Virginia. That's CHAPMANVILLE, West Virginia 25508. I used my home address for a long time, and I decided that that's not the brightest thing to do. So just throw it in there, the P.O. Box. I'll check it every couple of weeks, and I'll let you know when I get it, okay? All right. Tons of content coming at you. I have tons of interviews and guest spots I'm going to be doing. I was just recently on the Conspire a Theory podcast. It's available on Spotify. I'm not sure what all else, But I was on there with Chris. They brought me on. I had a lot of fun on that show. So if you want to check that out, that'd be cool. Yeah, let's go ahead and just sit down and relax and get ready to talk to the guys from the Silver Pilled podcast. All right. You guys hear me?
Yep, we're here.
All right. Like I said off air, I did a little bit of a pre-intro. So if you guys want to just jump in to introduce yourselves and whatever you want to talk about, this is your show, baby.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having us on, Bo. This is awesome. This is a dream come true for us. We've listened to you for a long time, so thank you for having us on, first and foremost.
The pleasure is all mine. I promise you. This is exciting for me. I've been listening to your show. You got a fan, man, for real.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So we're a Silver Pilled podcast. My name's Lowell. My brother Harrison. We started in September, right?
Mm-hmm.
September 2022. We both kind of always grew up in the weird, I guess, sitting around the campfire telling stories at night, and always enjoyed it. And I think our wives finally got tired of us spending hours and hours on the phone talking about it. So you guys should Harrison's like, you should just do a show. We should just do a podcast. We'd be, and I was like, well, I don't know. I'd have to talk to people and put myself out there. But he finally harassed and bugged me enough to start this podcast. So
that's what little brothers are for.
Right. Nag me into submission.
Go ahead, Bo.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Lowell mentioned that we would sit around campfires growing up, and our parents would tell us, all the spooky stories to get us worked up. But we were raised Christian in a Christian home, and so talking about this stuff with friends outside of the family kind of made us look like weirdos because, not many, at least back then, not many people in church really talked about this kind of stuff. So Lowell and I were always just kind of on the fringe of topics because of our parents raising us that way. And it was one of those things where, I think we can kind of clash the weird with scripture because the scripture is the most supernatural book out there.
Amen.
If we can believe that, a donkey talked to a man, or that God came down into a body and died and went to defeat hell and death itself and rise again 3 days later. I mean, I think if we could put enough faith in that, I think it's okay to believe in Bigfoot.
Exactly. Thank God for open-minded parents. I have a very similar, upbringing. My family, I was raised Catholic, actually. On my dad's side of the family, there were Italians and Irish, so I didn't really have a choice. It was you're born Catholic.
Sure.
I'm Kennedy. That's what you got to do. But the family, everybody said very open-minded. Ghosts, of course, are real. Demonic possession, of course, it's real. My dad worked for the NSA when he was in the Air Force. So when I'm like, he got out about the time I was born. But when I become a teenager and I start getting into all this weird stuff, he hits me with these, UFO recovery stories or whatever,
Sure.
So I'm like, yeah, it's real, So yeah, man, I get it. I relate. Did you have any personal experiences that you guys like to sit around the campfire and talk about? Is there anything?
I had one. I've had a few. It wasn't until later in my life. I think the first one I had was shortly after I got married to my wife, and it wasn't anything too big, but it was kind of the reason. Well, no, I would say is the main reason I stopped watching scary movies. I remember we had just bought a house. We were newly married, and she had to work nights. So she usually didn't get home till 10:30 at night, which would leave me home alone a lot. And I think it was the night before, we had watched the first Conjuring movie. And then the following night, she was at work. I'm sitting on the couch watching TV. The house is empty besides me and my dog. And out of nowhere, I could hear noise coming from our upstairs bedroom. Now, mind you, I'd never heard this before. So I was like, oh man, what is going on? Now, it was a townhome, so I chalked it up to the shared wall, that maybe it's the neighbors, upstairs in their house making noise. But then as I'm listening, I could hear it come down our stairs, footsteps coming down our stairs. And, still in the back of my mind, I'm freaking out, but I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just the neighbors, because it was slow descending down the stairs. But my dog perked his head up, and he was staring at the stairs with his ears up and his hackles up.
Yeah, man.
And that put me a little bit on edge. Of course, nothing ever came down. I never saw anything. So I started to get a little worked up. I went out on our back deck to smoke a cigarette and calm down. Okay, it's okay. Heather, my wife, Heather, she'll be home soon. It's about, it might have been about 10 o'clock that night. So I was kind of waiting to hear her call that she was on her way home. I went back inside and I closed the sliding glass door, and I stopped. I'm listening. I thought, what is that noise? And I heard this low humming. I thought, what in the world is that? And then I realized that the fan in my laundry room had turned itself on, and that was the hum I was hearing in the time that I was outside. So I thought, oh, great, here we go. So I'm not, this is getting kind of weird. Okay. I'm starting to freak out a little bit more. And then my wife called me and she said, hey, I'm about to leave, work. I'll be home shortly. Okay. So I'm just kind of freaking out, waiting for her to get home. Like, I guess, in the back of my mind, thinking, well, two's better than one, Well, finally, I heard, no, it couldn't have been too long. She worked about 10 minutes away, and maybe within 5 minutes of hanging up the phone with her, I could hear the front doorknob, like she was unlocking the door, and she was getting ready to come in the house. I was thinking, oh, thank goodness. And the dog started to get excited because he heard it too. He thought mom was home. He went trotting over there, and I could hear the doorknob fidgeting, and I thought, man, something's going wrong with her keys. Like, she can't get the key in the doorknob, whatever. But then it stopped, and she never came in the house. Oh. My dog's still standing there looking at the front door, and I'm thinking, what's going on? What is she doing? Well, about 15 minutes later, she calls me again and says, sorry, I got held up at work. Now I'm leaving, and I'll be home soon. Mm. Nothing happened after that. And in that house, nothing had happened after that. But it was one of those things. Well, we used to ghost hunt as kids, and our parents were always kind of like, man, you might be opening up doors doing that. Just be careful. Well, I was like, you know what? If ghost hunting can do it and open up doors, I'm going to assume that watching these movies with this, these spiritual forces in it, especially based on true stories, that there's a good chance that could open up doors too. So since then, I haven't watched a scary movie. Yeah. Maybe it was just my own paranoia. I grew up with Lowell, who liked to torment me all the time as his little brother. So I am pretty paranoid to begin with, but that was a pretty eerie experience. Since then, I've actually told this story once before on a podcast. It was before we even started our podcast. And it was in my current house. It was what, Lowell, maybe 2 summers ago.
Yeah, that was a year I moved to Tennessee. So 2021, August 21.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds about right.
August, September 21. Yeah.
Lowell had come out to visit with his family at our house in Pennsylvania, and all of our family lives around here. Our family owns a pretty large farm on 80 acres. And so in downtime, we're always invited to go out there and spend some time on the farm and hike around. So we took Lowell and his family out there, and my family, and we were hiking around, having a good time. And I don't know if this has any association with the story that happened to me, but it was pretty weird. We, as we were walking through the woods, Lowell and I talk about what we talk about. And I brought up fairies or the fae, and Lowell stops mid-trail, looks at me, and he goes, I don't talk about fairies out in the woods. I was like, well, what are you talking about? I don't understand. He goes, I don't like talking about fairies out in the woods. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So we kept walking and talking. And at one point, I saw some trash off the trail in the woods. And again, I don't know if this is any correlation, but I ran up to pick it up because it's a family farm. If trash blows in, I like to take it out. And it was a blue Mylar balloon. Put it in my backpack, didn't think anything of it. We packed out of there, went home, and I can't remember if it was the next day, Lowell, that we went back to the farm to have coffee with all our great uncles and grandparents.
I can't remember either. I don't think I thought it might have been a day or two after that, but I could be wrong.
Okay. It was within a couple days though.
Yeah.
Of that hike. Well, anyways, I threw the Mylar balloon away in our trash can. And our trash can's kind of in a cupboard. So you have to pull it open, trash can comes out, you throw it away, and then it slams shut. So it's the next day, or whenever this was, we had gotten up early to go back to the farm to have coffee with our relatives early in the morning. And our wives knew about it. Lowell's wife was going to stay and do something with another family member. My wife was going to stay home alone with our kids. So I got up before anyone else. Lowell came and picked me up. We went and we were enjoying ourselves when my wife calls me. She's calling me like frantically. Finally, I answer. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, there's someone in the house. She goes, is Lowell's wife here? I said, no. She goes, are you here? I said, no, I'm on the farm. She goes, there's someone in the house. I said, what are you talking about? She says, I heard walking around downstairs. The floorboards are creaking. I mean, my house is 100 years old. So we have the original floorboards. They're creaky as all get out. She says, I could hear them walking from the living room to the dining room and into the kitchen. And I heard the trash can open and slam shut. She goes, someone's downstairs in the house. I said, well, at this point, I only had 2 daughters, but I said, where are the girls? And she goes, they're in the room with me with the dog. We're locked in the room. I thought, okay, well, get the gun. I'm coming home. So Lowell rushed me home and we didn't find anything. All the doors were locked from the inside. Deadbolts were locked. She goes, I heard something walking around the house and it went in the trash can.
Wow.
So I didn't think anything of that. Well, it wasn't not even a week later. You had gone back to Tennessee at this point.
Yeah, we had left.
And we were upstairs sleeping. And I remember waking up and I heard this really strange white, the only way I can describe it is like a white noise. Mm-hmm. The only way I can really describe it is as you can hear an airplane off in the distance and it's getting closer and closer and closer, and until it's loudest when it's right above you. And that noise, that rumble, that kind of white noise that it gives off peaks before it starts to move away from you and get quieter. Well, it was like that noise of it peaking, but constant. It wasn't getting closer. It wasn't going further. So as I'm waking up listening to it, I thought, did we leave the air conditioning on? What in the world is that? And no, the air conditioning's not on. So I'm just sitting there listening to it. And then I was kind of broken out of that when I heard music playing out from outside. And we're on the second floor of my house. What in the world is that? I mean, we live by a street, with a small amount of traffic on it. And I thought, what in the world? Is that someone's music playing from their car really loud? No, it's the same 4 notes over and over again. Like, what in the world? Is someone parked outside the house blaring music? No, it doesn't sound like that. Is it an ice cream truck? Like, I'm trying to, it's middle of the night. I'm really trying to rationalize what I'm hearing. And as I'm listening more and more, it's the same 4 notes playing over and over again, but it's a flute. Same 4 note. And I'm thinking, what in the world? Is the only rational thing I could think of was that someone was literally standing outside of my house playing the same 4 notes on a flute. And so I'm freaking out, and it was really weird because I wanted to wake up my wife so that she could hear it, so that I wasn't crazy. But at the same point in time, I was worried that if I woke her up, it would go away and I would really be crazy. So I was crawled out of bed. I'm walking over to my window, the drapes pulled closed, and I'm like, and I can still hear it plain as day from the other side of this window, these same 4 notes. And I thought, this has got to be a radio. But then I heard it mess up.
Really?
So it was playing in the same 4 notes, and maybe about the 3rd note, you can kind of hear that it hit the wrong note, slipped up, and then hit the right note, and then kept going.
Oh, wow.
I thought, okay, so this isn't a radio. I wouldn't hear it mess up. So now my mind's going crazy. I know I'm awake. I know what I'm hearing. I know I'm not dreaming. I'm like, I want to pull the blinds back, but I'm so terrified I'm going to see like this weird, gnarly, pan or some weird fairy in the tree. I'm really getting myself worked up. And right before I had the courage to open up the blinds, I could hear it slowly fade away, like it was walking down the street, playing the same 4 notes. At this point, I'm like, okay. I woke up my wife. I checked the time. It's midnight, or maybe I think it was like 12:20. I told my wife everything. I'm freaking out. Every rational thought is gone. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what about my kids? Is something trying to lead my kids out of my house? This is too weird. I've seen this too many times in movies and heard too many scary stories, So I grabbed a gun and I went around the house. Everything was fine. I mean, there was nothing out of place, but it was the strangest thing. Oh, and then I realized as it walked away and I was waking my wife up, that white noise that I heard was gone.
Wow.
So I don't know if that has any correlation to the experience, or if I'm just, making something out of nothing. It was just kind of one of those things that I was like, oh, that was weird. That's what initially woke me up. And now that flute noise is gone, that's gone. So I don't know if it's at all connected. That's speculation on my part.
Yeah.
But those were the big ones for
Man.
me.
Yeah. Well, with the first story about what made you stop watching movies, I'm in the same camp as you are on that. I still watch some scary movies around Halloween because I'm not the only person that lives here, and I am the only person that thinks that the boogeyman's going to really be coming to visit.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I play along with the family. We watch the movies. I pray at night,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just heard somebody talking about this too, about how when you listen to certain types of music or you watch certain kind of content, that by listening to it and enjoying that music or whatever, you're kind of coming into an agreement with whatever's on the other side. Now, is it of a demonic influence? I don't know. Is the artist or the creator doing it, to glorify something demonic? Maybe. But if you're willingly participating, then you're kind of in an agreement and accord with it. So
I had never heard that. That's a really good point, though. That would make sense.
it makes sense.
Yeah, that's almost makes it a little bit more diabolical when you think about it that way.
Yeah, because the music's so good, right?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? They really can shred on a guitar. I like that guy. Man. But yeah, man. So yeah, I'm with you on that. And so you actually heard the doorknob like going?
I mean, the dog heard it. I literally thought my wife was fumbling around with her keys, trying to get it in the doorknob, trying to wiggle it, get it open. I mean, sometimes the doorknob would stick. It was Colorado, so things froze over pretty quick at night out there. I mean, maybe the lock was frozen, but and the dog got all excited, went rushing over there, waiting for mom, like she was about to bust in that door, and she never did. So, I mean, again, this could be all rational too. I can't say it's paranormal. Was someone trying to break in? I mean, that could very well be. I don't know, but I do associate it a little bit more closely with a spiritual aspect or a paranormal aspect, because the fan turned on the inside of the house, and we heard the footsteps coming down the stairs.
Right.
So that's why I tend to go more paranormal on that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. Even if it was a one-off thing, people talk about roaming spirits, wandering spirits. So maybe something was going through.
Sure.
So I don't know how all that works yet.
Right.
I imagine I'll be on the other side before I figure that out. But yeah, man, that's pretty intense, especially in the moment. And for this, as soon as you mentioned Mylar Balloon and the Fae,
Mhm.
have you watched Hellier?
I hadn't at that point,
Okay.
but after all that happened, after I told a couple of guys at work, and they're like, "Man, have you ever watched Hellier?" And I was like, "Man, I'd heard about it. I heard they did some stuff on it that I don't necessarily agree with, and I don't really want to bring that into my house." And I haven't watched it in my house. My wife made me swear I wouldn't watch it in the house, but they had clips of it on YouTube, so I did. In the vehicle, I'd listen to it and kind of see what was going on, and then I saw that and I thought, come on, could this really be something? I mean, again, it went in the trash days after I had thrown that stupid balloon away. So I don't know and I didn't put those connections together myself. That was, days and days later when I was talking about it at work. They're like, man, you should watch Hellier. That sounds, I thought, oh, great.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy because that goes dark.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, spoil anything for anyone who hasn't watched Hellier yet, but that took a turn. You know what I mean? So if I were you, I'd be getting that balloon out and driving it back to the farm.
Yeah, no kidding.
Keep your fairies.
Well, I guess I'm to blame. Lowell warned me, don't talk about the fairies in the woods.
Yeah. You should have listened to your brother, man.
I should have.
So what about you, Lowell? You got any everybody's got stories.
Yeah. I've got a few. One of this one's kind of interesting. So back early 2000s, I was living in Colorado, and me and a couple of buddies decided we wanted to go out and do some paintballing out in the national forest. So we drove out into, I don't know if anybody knows where this is, but it's out by Tarryall Reservoir, out in some national forest out there. And we weren't paintballing, but we were looking for an area to go paintballing. So we were trying to find a place where we didn't have to run up and down too many hills, or had plenty of cover to just have a good game. It was me and two of my buddies, and my wife's dog was along. Well, so I'll have to tell you about this dog. She was really an interesting character, but she was very scared of everything. So she would never, out in the woods, she would never leave my side. She was never more than 2 steps away from me. And if she ever did get scared, she would try to claw her way into your lap. She was very, very emotionally dependent upon, first off, my wife, and then if my wife was around, on me. So she never was out of sight in the woods. I never put her on a leash. She just walked right beside me, never had an issue, because she was just terrified of being away from us. So we had driven back on these dirt roads, and this is national forest, and it was open range. So the ranchers, I think they could pay a very small fee, and they could have their cows there for a few months out of each summer. I'm not sure of this, but there was ranchers who had cows there throughout the whole summer. So there's always some livestock moving around. But at this point we didn't see any cows, but we had driven out to this area, stopped and got out, and we walked back, maybe quarter of a mile from the road. We wanted to get far back in, so if anybody drove by, even though it was a dirt trail, they're not getting smacked with paintballs or something as they're driving by, and plus our vehicles would be safe out there as well.
Right.
So we hiked back, and we got to this flat area, and we're looking around, and we noticed that there was a cow skeleton laying in the grass. So we walked over to it, and it was a full, complete skeleton. I mean, it had just laid over, died, and decomposed. Nothing had touched it. And I mean, we grew up hunting and camping. I've seen plenty of bones in the woods. I've seen full vertebrae, right. Spinal columns. You never see a full skeleton just laid there. Scavengers will scatter it, hundreds, thousands of feet sometimes. But this was a full-blown cow skeleton laying there in the grass. And as we walked over to it, my dog went trotting over to it. And when she got about a foot away, she stopped dead in her tracks, turned around and ran that quarter mile straight back to the truck without stopping.
What?
Just was gone. I'd never seen her act like that at all, ever. So we kind of like laughed it off. Oh, haha, that's funny. I guess we got to go get the dog. And we walked back, and she was laying under the truck, shaking so bad she could barely stand up. It scared her so bad. So I don't know what that's about. I call it was a skeleton from like a cattle mutilation is always what I thought. But
Yeah, man.
that was one of the weird stories.
Do you think she smelled something on it, or
that would be my only guess, or or got close enough to sense something? I don't know. My guess is the smell.
yeah?
But it wasn't like the smell didn't permeate the area. If it did, because we were kind of in that area a little bit before we walked over to it. You know, we're probably 15, 20 feet away from it. So
See, that's what you get for not having a Geiger counter on you.
Right, I know.
Check radiation.
To walk around with one of those all the time now.
Man, that's crazy.
So I had that happen. My in-laws, they live up in the Rocky Mountains, and they're so far out they don't even have electricity. So their whole house is run on solar batteries and a generator. And usually they only use a generator when like people are over and they're using the ovens, microwaves, whatever. Most of the time it's just off batteries. But we were all there the one night, and they needed to turn the generator on, so I volunteered to go out and do it. And I mean, it's dark out there, you know what I mean? Like there's no light pollution. So I go walking out towards the generator, and it's, I don't know, 75 yards away from the house, maybe far enough away to keep the noise down and stuff so you can still enjoy the evening. And it's dark, and I have my tiny little headlamp on my head, and I have it on the lowest setting, so I'm just walking out to do a generator. I'm not really thinking anything, and I'm looking down at the ground, making sure I don't trip and fall over a rock. And as I get closer to the building that has the generator, I look up, and I catch this eye shine in my light. And I stop and I look at it. I'm like, oh, those are two eyes facing in the front of the head. So first off, my mind's like, okay, so it's predatory. And I'm like, okay, well, they have bears out here. I'm like, is that a bear? I'm like, no, they're really, really far apart. And I'm like, is that like a cow? No, it must be a predator. They're in the front. And my brain's like trying to figure out what these are. And I came to the realization that they're too far apart to be like a cow or a mountain lion. They're too tall off the ground to be anything I know. Oh, wow. And I just like freak out, and I reach up to turn my headlamp on high so I can actually see it, and I knock my headlamp off my head and it falls to the ground. So I'm like fussing around on the ground trying to grab it and look up, and I'm just waiting to get picked up by a Bigfoot and carried into the woods. But I found it, and I got it up on high, and I looked, and there was no eyes, nothing. I didn't hear anything leave. I didn't hear a sound. And I looked up, and I couldn't find anything. And I kind of walked over to where I thought it was, and where it should have been, there was like a steep drop off. It went down off the side of the mountain, very, very steep. So it must have been standing down behind that drop off. And it was still taller than anything I could think of at the time.
Oh, wow.
So again, I can't say it's Bigfoot. I don't know what it was, but it gave me a shock.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, if you had to throw a name on it, it sounds like you just did, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think it was swamp gas.
Right. Really
right. Yeah. It was your Mylar balloon, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Man, yeah, that would freak me out too.
Yeah, that was it shook me up a little bit, and my wife and her family and stuff, they don't they're not into the whole paranormal thing, so I just kind of had to like suck it up and deal with it till I could talk to, I think, Harrison or somebody I told as soon as I could.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one too. My wife thinks that I'm like looking in too deep at stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And even if this stuff did exist, what could I do about it? So
Right.
You know, you're in good company here then.
Yeah. Just because Bigfoot exists doesn't mean it gets the kids to school on time or the dishes done.
Exactly. You know, when this show can pay the mortgage, then she'll take it serious. But until then, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So then I have one more if you want to hear it.
Of course.
This is a scary one. This was early 2000s. Was kind of at a time in my life. A lot of people call it like a liminal time in their life. I was kind of going through some changes, stuff like that. And it wasn't anything crazy or major, but I was 20, 21. I was pretty young. So it was kind of major to me. So at night I would go out and walk, and we lived on these dirt roads. So no traffic, nothing like that. And I'd just go walk and kind of get myself unwound before I had to go to bed and you could actually get some sleep and stuff. So I was walking one night, and these roads, I mean, I knew them like the back of my hand. I could probably walk them blindfolded, and I was walking them, 5-6 nights a week at that point, just kind of clearing my head. And I was walking down this dirt road towards a T. It dead ended into the paved road there, and I would kind of turn around and go back, or I tried to stay off the paved roads because sometimes people start driving too fast and at night, and there's no sidewalks or no street lamps, nothing like that. So I tried to stick to the dirt roads. And there was a moon out. It was pretty good visibility, and I was walking, just kind of lost in my thoughts, and all of a sudden I heard something call my name inside my head. It was kind of this raspy, gravelly voice inside my head it was like, Lowell. And I stopped, and I was like, what on earth was that? It was the first time I've ever had anything like that. And even though it was inside of my head, I knew the direction it was coming from. And I looked up, and about 30 yards away, down in some grass, or some dead grass, it was about, I don't know, a foot tall, 1.5 feet tall. And it was in the moonlight, so I could see, I could see the grass fine. There was this black, dark spot that was just darker than dark. I mean, when people say it absorbed the light, that's the best thing I can describe about it. And as soon as I locked onto it, this fear hit me. And it wasn't, this was the weirdest part. The fear wasn't like coming from inside of me. It was like that thing projected the fear, and this wave of fear hit me externally. And like just stopped me dead cold right there. And I stared at it for about half a second, and I started to rebuke it in my head. I didn't say a word. In my head, I had just started to say, in the name of, and it was gone. The fear, the spot, the black spot, everything was gone. Wow. And I just stood there like middle of the night, no one's around. So I rebuked it. I prayed, I rebuked it again, and I turned around and walked back home.
Yeah.
But that one shook me up the most out of everything that has happened. That one was like, it's real, it's here, it's in your face. And the fact that it could get into my head without being invited really was eye-opening to me. About, because growing up in the church, it was like, yeah, there's demons, but they're over there, they can't hurt you, just say Jesus' name and they'll go away. It wasn't like, well, they can just walk right up and kick down the door to your skull and be inside your brain. I never thought that. So
man, Whew. Obviously, you didn't know who it was messing with, though, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it fled as soon as I started rebuking. So I don't know. And I mean, we've been both raised Christian, and I don't know if it was just trying to. I mean, I'm sure it was just trying to mess with me or something, and it must have known it'd get rebuked. But I think it was just there to. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's the thing with these demons. I'm all about spiritual warfare, man. If I didn't have to live it the last couple of years as much as I have, I don't know. But it seems like all my life that's been a topic for me. Like when I was a kid, I was scared to death of possession. That was like, I'm never afraid of spiders. Couldn't care less about snakes. Turned it on 2020 at my grandmother's house, my Catholic grandmother's house. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and she was watching a special of a live exorcism. I don't know why they would do that, but it was like the late 80s. You know what I mean? And I'm like hiding in the bathroom doorway, like trying not to watch it. But I see this stuff, man. It put this fear in me. And so growing up and into my 30s, I was scared to death of demonic possession. Even though I had, I got saved when I was 20. Yeah, it was right before I turned 21. I was still afraid. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like I kept getting pulled toward that topic. And I didn't even call it spiritual warfare really when I was younger. It's just, protection. I was looking for protection. But the last couple of years, once I started understanding and got deeper into the word, and man, it is so real. It's like if I wasn't talking to Christians on the same walk, I would sound like a nut job, and I might still sound like a nut job. I don't care. The supernatural world is just as real and just as tangible as where we're sitting at right now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I almost lost my train of thought. It's just there's been so much that's been going on, man. Like I know you guys talked to Dark Waters, right? We talked off air. We shared. He said similar things to each one of us.
Yeah.
I talked to him 2 or 3 times off the show because I was needing some counsel, and he is. I think he's a prayer warrior, man. I think he's a man of God.
Yeah.
I put trust and confidence in what he, and the guidance that he gave me. I think he's a good light. But things got really intense here, and there's been times where I don't know how you guys feel about cleansing a home, or how you go about doing it. But I've had a couple of instances where you can feel something around you. I had one instance where I was down in my office where I used to do the show. I used to record it there, where I was going through certain prayers, certain scripture I like to read when I'm rebuking, doing it, battling it out. And I literally felt something brush past my chest. It got that real, in my own home. You know what I mean? Like a place where you think is safe. Like you're talking about it can come straight in there and talk in your head. Places that are sanctuary, man. So it's very real. You got to keep your guard up. You got to keep the armor on. Harrison, I know you said that you had some experiences with spiritual warfare lately too, right?
Well, it's kind of funny when Lowell and I first started this show, we had some 1 or 2 instances happened, and at first, I mean, I'll tell the story, I guess. So right after I think we recorded the skin, what was it, Lowell? Hunt for the Skinwalker, No,
Skinwalkers in the Pentagon.
Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. We did an episode on the hitchhiker effect, the supernatural things following you home after an investigation, and we had recorded, I believe it was a Friday, and that following Sunday, I was telling my wife a little bit about it, what we talked about, and then that following Sunday, we were getting ready for church. We're rushing out of the house. At this point, we had our baby, so I was up to 3 kids, and so it's hectic getting out of the house with 2 kids. It was even worse with 3. We all finally pile into the car. As my wife gets into the car, she says, "What did you do with the baby's binky?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "The baby's binky. I couldn't find it." And I said, "Well, I didn't see it. I grabbed the 2 older kids. We came out first. You were in charge of the baby. Like, I didn't see it. We'll find it I couldn't find it. Well, we'll find it when we get home. Don't worry about it." She goes, "I thought it was last time I saw it was in the swing, but it wasn't there." I thought, okay, well, we'll find it. Don't worry about it. Shrugged it off, went to church, didn't think anything of it, came home, walked in the door. Everyone's unloading. My wife walks into the living room where the baby's swing was, and she just stops, stares at the swing, and she looks up at me and she goes, "Did you do this?" I had no idea what she was talking about. No, what are you talking about? And I looked over, and she's pointing at the baby's swing. And I looked over, and there in the swing is the baby's folded blanket and the binky sitting right on top of it. And I said, "No, I didn't do that. I literally just got in the door with the 2 older kids. They're being crazy. I haven't even been in the living room yet." And she goes, "I ripped that blanket off out of that swing looking for that binky before we left." So it was like, well, that's kind of weird. Then that same day, my middle daughter, she's got her doggy. It's her stuffed animal, like inseparable. It's her security blanket, right? She calls it doggy. Well, we're getting her ready to take her up to bed, put the kids down. My wife and I were going to watch some TV or something to unwind after we put the kids to bed. And my daughter is saying, "Where's doggy? Where's doggy?" I thought, oh, good grief, here we go. Well, we couldn't find doggy. We searched high and low. We searched the car. We got my oldest child involved. "Hey, help us find doggy. Just check every room because she can't sleep without it." We tore the couch apart. Like, my oldest daughter at the time, she might have been 6, or no, she's 6 now. She might have been 5. I think she was 6 though. She'd torn the couch apart, and I was a little frustrated because I had to put it back together. Whatever. She's helping. I wasn't mad. We couldn't find the darn thing. We checked everywhere. I checked under the car in the garage. Did she drop it? Well, we must have left it at church. Oh boy. Well, we finally got her to bed. We got her mind off of it. We sit down on the couch. My wife and I my wife's holding the baby, and we're just watching a little bit of TV, and the baby spit up on me. Just, not directly on me, but she spit up, and oh man. So my wife grabs a burp cloth, and she's wiping it up. She's wiping it up off my pants and kind of around my thigh area where I'm sitting and underneath there. And she stops and she looks at me and she goes, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "What?" And she looks down at where she was wiping. And I look down. I'm sitting on doggy.
No way.
Yeah. And she goes, "This is twice in one day." I said, "Yeah, I know. I don't know how to explain this." She goes, "You're joking." I said, I didn't do this. I promise you. My oldest child tore this couch apart. Yeah. I put it back together. It was not on this couch when we sat down. We would have seen it somehow, some way. It managed to get underneath my butt at some point. I don't know. It was weird. So that was kind of fun. Oh man, this is kind of exciting. It was, I hate to say it, but it was almost exciting. Like, oh, right. Weird stuff's happening. This stuff we can talk about. And now I've never told these stories. It was one of those things, like, weird stuff is happening. So there were little things here and there since then. Both my wife and I had heard our daughter's voice talk to us directly when she was nowhere near us, or she wasn't even talking, or anything like that.
Or it wasn't your daughter.
Exactly. One time I was plugging in their nightlight. They had gotten a new nightlight, and I'm underneath their dresser. My 2 older kids share a room, and I'm kind of crouched down on my stomach, and I'm reaching back underneath the dresser to plug this nightlight in, and right in my ear from the hallway, from the open door, "Dad!" And it sounded like urgency. So my response was, "What?"
All right.
Kind of look around. No one's there. Okay. So I go downstairs. I was like, "What do you want?" to my oldest kid, and she goes, what are you talking about? I said, what were you saying? She goes, I didn't say anything. I'm just sitting here coloring. Okay, that was a little weird. Well, later on, my wife tells me, she goes, I didn't want to tell you this because I knew it'd just fuel your fire, and she was standing in our entryway. Our girls were down for a nap. I wasn't home, but she heard our oldest come down the stairs and go, morning, Mom. And so she's in the entryway. She couldn't see the stairs, but they were real close to her. They're just around the corner. And she goes, oh, morning, baby. How was your nap? And no response. And so she turns and pokes her head around the corner, and no one's there. She goes, Harrison, I heard that clear as day. I said, yeah, that's what happened to me upstairs. So again, I'm getting kind of giddy.
Right.
Well, it really got real for me, the spiritual warfare stuff, like right before Christmas. And I can only speculate on what would have changed in my life. I had given up some habits to the Lord that had been in my life for a while. I'll just say I was drinking beer, right? I was by no means an alcoholic, but It was something that, as like you said, with Dark Waters, making an altar, like using the podcast as an altar to God. The more I thought about that, I was thinking about the things in my life that I was making an altar, but instead of God. And so drinking beer was one of those things. I used it to take the edge off after work. I used it to relax on the weekends or to have, and again, I was by no means an alcoholic. I don't want to sound like, I was way over the top, but it was something that I recognized in my life that if I'm relying on God to be my comfort, to be my rest, this is an altar that I'm going to instead of God. So I completely, okay, I'm done. I'm done drinking alcohol. Thanksgiving Day was my last beer. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm gonna last till Christmas. Maybe I'll have a beer on Christmas, but after, I'm not gonna go back to a beer every other day or 2 beers on the weekends. I'm not gonna go back to that. That's when, and it's really hard to describe without making it sound like I'm overreacting, I'll say, but I would wake up and it was always after we released a heavy episode or on a Friday when we recorded. It was always happening on a Friday or on a Wednesday. And it was it felt like I had been up all night on a bender drinking. I felt exhausted. I felt like I hadn't slept. Even visually, I had horrible dark circles under my eyes to the point where like people were noticing. I thought, what is going on? My eyes were bloodshot and just emotional baggage. I was so depressed that I didn't even want to pray. I felt so far removed from God that I was almost disgusted with God. It was weird, but I knew at the time this wasn't me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I would get random thoughts of suicide just pop into my head. Yep. I'd be like, I'm a musician. Well, I used to be. I guess I still am. But so I play a lot of music in my head. I don't listen to it a lot, but I'll play it in my head and sing songs in my head. And it would just out of nowhere, the lyrics would change to something with a suicidal thought. And whoa, pump the brakes. Where did that come from? Yep. And it would crescendo. But then the next day I would be completely fine. I might have gotten less sleep, but I would be fine. The dark circles under my eyes were gone. These weird thoughts and this complete feeling of depression and just a horrible feeling. Well, while that was going on, I started to get this really horrible pain in the lower right side of my back. And I did what people shouldn't do, and I started Googling it. And Dr. Google had me convinced that I had a kidney infection. Right. I thought, well, maybe this is because I gave up alcohol. Maybe, something was going on that by giving up alcohol, it caused my kidney to flare up. I don't know. This is just kind of how I was making it work in my mind. So I was drinking lots of water, and then I'd feel fine all week. And then boom, Wednesday or Friday would hit, and it was like clockwork. I would expect it.
Yeah.
So this pain was getting so bad. And this was just several weeks ago. This actually was very recent. It was getting so bad at work that I could barely stand. I either had to sit down or I had to literally pace around. So I called my wife and I said, look, you need to set up a doctor's appointment for me. This is getting worse. It's got to be a kidney infection. It is getting so bad I can barely stand. And I'm not a doctor guy. I mean, this was probably the first time I've been to the doctor in 20 years, you know.
Right.
So she says, okay, well, I couldn't get you until January. And I said, that's going to be too long. I can't wait that long. This is really bad. She goes, well, you got to go to urgent care then if it's that bad. Okay. And I did, that's a lot for me to do. So I took myself to urgent care and they couldn't find anything wrong. There's nothing physically wrong with you. And I said, I'm telling you right now, even as I'm sitting here, this pain is so miserable. It's got to be something. She goes, did you lift something heavy recently? I said, no, I swear it's a kidney infection. She goes, it's not a kidney infection. I can promise you that.
Wow.
And so I was so miserable. So I went home and I called my parents, and my dad is a prayer warrior. Like, he's a very quiet, humble man, but when that man prays, it's pretty amazing. So instantly, and my mom's a nurse. So she goes, well, you're probably just overtired. And I said, Mom, I'm getting plenty of sleep, kind of arguing with her. And then my dad overheard it and he goes, tell him we're praying right now. This isn't what he thinks it is. And so he prayed over me and it went away. So then the next day I woke up and I thought, and it was back, this pain and these feelings. And I remembered the night before my father praying over me. And so I went outside at work and I thought, we just went through this, God. And I had to literally force myself to pray because I didn't want to. It was almost like there was something telling me that he's not listening. Don't worry about it. Nothing's going to change even if you do. Yeah. But no, I really had to push past that and force myself to pray. And I prayed and I started rebuking it in the name of Jesus. And sure enough, I could feel this pain move from my lower right side across my back into my lower left side. Then it would move into my stomach. And, it wasn't there anymore where it had been. Now it was in my stomach and I rebuked it and it was gone.
Yeah. Oh, thank God.
And that was when, and then the depression was gone. It was like, I could see clear again. It's almost like you're driving with mud on the windshield and you're barely making out the road. And all of a sudden, you use windshield wiper fluid. Now you can see where you're at. It was instantly, in the middle of my shift at work.
Wow. You gave me chills, man.
And so that's when I started really going hard into spiritual warfare and the study of it. And even currently, I'm still dealing with stuff. I will still have days like that. But I think that's more so because of what I've been looking into. But I'll wake up, I'll get 7-8 hours of sleep, wake up and feel like I haven't slept in days. Yeah. And I'll just feel completely helpless. But as soon as I start rebuking, it's gone.
Yeah. One, thank you for sharing that with me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I can relate to every word, man. Feeling it leave your body. See, I believe wholeheartedly. Like I said, we talked to DW. He told me all these things. To give up this, and this, as far as like control. Give up control of the podcast, make it an altar to God. So I try to be obedient with that stuff with the Lord. I try to do, whatever he wants me to do, whatever, whoever wants to come on the show. Like when you reached out to me, that's from God. As far as I'm concerned, that's where that came from. That's why you guys are on the show, because this is what we're supposed to be doing. So I'm cool with that. I just want to hit, co-pilot. God's the pilot. I'll just steward the show. That's how Darkwater's described it, But he was also telling me some stuff, and I don't know if it was on our episode or not, but about when you rebuke these things, when you break the bond that you have, whatever the legalistic agreement is that you're in accord with these demons, how legalistic it all is. it made sense. So I started going through my life, asking God to take things away from me, and I rebuke things in the name of Jesus. And man, I would get sick. Like I would get physically ill, dry heaves, having to go to the bathroom or whatever. I know that sounds gross, but
Oh yeah.
You can feel it. Like it's purging it out of your body. And I really think that's what's been going on, because me and my wife, like I said, we've been Christians, but we weren't practicing Christians. Not like we should have been. We weren't in the Word every day. We weren't going to church like we should have been. But a year ago, right at New Year's, the church we had been checking out, they had a watch service for New Year's 2021 or 2022. Yeah. And we're like, well, this is it. We're going to make this our resolution. We won't miss a service if we can't help it. And we're just going to go all in for Jesus, all in, no holds barred. So we do that. And we come out of the service, and I was a heavy smoker. I smoked, I don't know if you guys smoke them, but American Spirits.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Man, I love those cigarettes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I wanted to quit. I felt convicted by that. I was only smoking about half a pack a day, but I felt convicted. So I asked God to help me quit. I made it about 2 or 3 days. Then I go back down here to the gas station, bought a pack of smokes, lit them up. I get about 2 puffs in, and it feels like somebody stabs me in my throat. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just, I'll toss it out the window, done with it. Try to smoke again. Can't really get through one. I wasn't saying that God was making me feel bad, but I asked for help. You know what I mean? So a couple of weeks goes on. I take my dad to a doctor's appointment. He finds out that he had cancer.
Oh no.
Coming back home, I feel real bad. I start feeling sick. Get to the house. I drop my dad off, at his truck. I come on up to the house. My wife's home. I tell her I don't feel too good. Takes my temperature. I had a fever of 103. And
Gosh.
I go down to the clinic, test positive for COVID.
Oh no.
And I was just in the truck with my dad for an hour.
Oh no.
Yeah. So guess who I gave COVID to the day he finds out that he had prostate cancer?
Oh man.
It's like, you got to feel about this big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to smoke at that point. I was too sick to smoke. I laid around the house. I wouldn't go to the doctor. I got on a wait list. I thought this will pass. I'll get the anything but the vaccine. So I was going to get the antibodies, right? So I got on the wait list. Well, I lay around until I developed pneumonia.
Oh,
So
no.
I wound up spending 5 days in the VA hospital. And while I'm in there, it hits my dad the exact same way. So I'm in Huntington, West Virginia, in a VA hospital. My dad is in Pikeville, Kentucky, in another hospital. We're both, we're on the ropes with this junk.
Man.
But ever since I come out, he recovered. He's completely beat cancer.
Oh, praise the Lord.
They blasted it. He's healed. Yes, glory to God. So he fully recovered. I fully recovered from that. But ever since then, man, I never started smoking again. So I got rid of it. But along that road, asking for help to quit smoking, I also enjoyed beer. I love beer. I loved beer. But I asked for help with my addiction. I didn't realize that maybe I was addicted to beer or to alcohol. But within a month, 2 months, there was no desire for a drink on the weekend. I can still enjoy a beer now. If I go out, we have a steak dinner or whatever, I might want one. I might grab one,
Mhm.
but I don't buy beer. I don't keep beer in my fridge. I don't keep any kind of alcohol in the fridge. And again, I'm not condemning this. I mean, if somebody wants to drink it,
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. But for me, when I asked for help, that addiction left for smoking, and that addiction left for any kind of alcohol. So in my world, in my mindset, that was a spirit of addiction. You know what I mean? That's some kind of demonic influence. We're not possessed, but we're oppressed, right?
Yep.
So that's a long story short. That was one thing that, God took. He took away the spirit of addiction. And as this last year has gone by, I've prayed, I've rebuked, and I've stayed sick in some form or fashion for like a solid year, man. It's just like perpetual. I'll feel good for like a week at most. And then I've had probably 7 or 8 courses of antibiotics. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And the thing is, from the time I was like 22, I joined the Air Force until I'm 42. I'd been sick like twice in 20 years. I'm not a sick person, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I don't know if I just had that many demons or, critters hanging on. But man, I'm ready for it to be over.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Well, the battle's never over, I don't think, until we're absent with the body and present with the Lord.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And I told you I might share a story too, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, we would love to.
Yeah.
Love to hear it.
It's super dark, and I probably won't go into all of it because it goes really personal for not just me, but for other people. But when we rededicated our journey, our life to God, living for Jesus, to be a light for Him, we decided, because we're the parents, that my daughter would also. I'm not one to force anything on anybody else, but it's in my home. It's me, my wife, my daughter, and my nephew. He came to live with us a few years ago. That's his own story. And my daughter, who we got custody of, is from a previous marriage. I got custody of her when she was 13 years old, and she had been living with us ever since. She is now 18. We decided that when we're going to church, we would like the kids to come with us once a month. At this point, she's 17. My nephew's 18. They're old enough to hang out at the house if they don't want to go. But once a month, I want them to come with us, just to get a little bit of the word, planning to get it stirring. Within a year, there were so many things that went on as far as relationships go. My nephew fell right into it. He got saved. He just opened church service for us last week.
Wow.
He's doing good. He's a little warrior for God.
That's awesome.
I shouldn't say little. He's 20 years old now, but he's doing great. My daughter, she has been, and I don't know if she'll ever listen to this show, so I don't want to go too far. But we got custody of her for certain reasons. There was a lot of trauma. There's a lot of things that she had to overcome. So it seems like things got compounded. There was it took her down a road of resentment to where going to church once a month with us, for 90 minutes or whatever, was not just a deal breaker. It was a relationship breaker. I discovered And that there were things that hinted to it back and forth, I guess for the last couple of years. But she was on a completely different path over the last year, to where I found out why I was having such a spiritual battle in my home. While we were trying to dedicate our lives to God, the devil, man, the way he works, he finds whatever chink in your armor he can find.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? For some people, it's depression. For some people, it's addiction. My weakness was my daughter. Daddy, I'm a protector. She's already been through enough. She's broken. She's hurt. That's where he hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to make it personal, because, she has her own journey. She has her own battle that she's facing too. I'm not trying to minimize that. But the attack, the way these battles go. So while we're getting closer to God, my child had actually tried to summon Lilith. She decided that she was going to stop taking medications and stuff that she was supposed to have been taking, hiding them, getting into some dangerous types of relationships. And by the time it was over, and I say it was over because it ended with her moving out. By the time it was over, she told me she wanted to be a Satanist. It completely devastated me. It devastated our family. She wanted to move out. And this is for going to church once a month. And I backed off that by like March. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't pushing it. She resisted. She didn't want it. We didn't force it. But that started something,
Mm-hmm.
And he was going to get us wherever he could.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I look at it. And it got to where things were starting to get almost physical. Like she was a little girl. I mean, I'm a big guy and she's not a big person. You know what I mean? She's like half my size, but she would get in my face, screaming, cussing, telling me she hates me. It got really, really tense, man. And she, instead of agreeing to chill out, get back on track, go to therapy, get all the help you need, do what you're supposed to do, she decided she wanted to move back to her mother. I can't express to you guys enough, and I don't know if I'm sharing way too much with the audience. I might make this part like a members only episode, so only like 15 people hear it. But she that's where all the trauma happened. You know what I mean? She went right back to what we were thought to be her abusers, but she was 18 at that point. And she had made up her mind that if we didn't let her go, that she was just going to run away. The kid's like a 4.0 student. She has way too much in her favor. And I love her too much to see her out in the street. Her mother's house is 1,000 miles from our house.
Oh.
So she would never make it. And after 4 years of no contact, within about 48 hours, she's gone. So my wife and I decided that if this is the game that he wants to play, he wants to, come after my children, I'm going to go after his. And so all that made me do was double down. So now I'm doing everything I can to help lead people to Christ. There's no shame. There's no worrying about what I look like or sound like. If you're lost, I'm going to do everything I can to take you away from the devil for Jesus. Because, they want war.
Yeah.
Our whole purpose here is to glorify God and to increase his dominion, right?
Amen.
So like Lowell said, he was in that field and it tried to get in his head and he rebuked it. But it come into my family, so I'm going after his family.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
It's a Cliff's Notes version of what I was going on. And I hate to air out laundry like that, man. But
thanks for sharing it. I mean,
Yeah.
bro, I've held on to that for almost 3 months now that she's been gone. That's why I'm in this room. This is her bedroom. You know what I mean? Like we just had to make the space for it. And what better place to build my altar than right over top of the spot I found notes written in Russian about Satan.
No.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So yeah, we're on the altar.
That's it. Do you mind if I ask, why was she going for Lilith specifically?
That's a good question. It was her and a friend. I got a hold of her text messages because, I'm a parent and there is no privacy in my world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I go through her text messages and I found it. And she was the ringleader on this, man, talking about wanting to, quote unquote, kill God and talking about trying to summon Lilith. And she told me, because these messages, we didn't catch it right off the bat. These were like 2.5 years old.
Oh.
She's like, well, it didn't work. It didn't work, but when they diagnose you with depression, when do they diagnose you with borderline personality disorder? When did this narcissistic behavior disorder come in? Yeah, it worked. You open the floodgates.
Yep.
And these demons are just having a field. They love the brokenhearted. Yeah, and they're going to feed off of that. That's what, if anybody that's listening is dealing with the stuff like you're talking about, Harrison, you said you had these depressive feelings, these suicidal ideations. This is spiritual warfare. It's real. We deal with this every day, and I didn't see anything in the Bible about schizophrenia. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
I'm not saying that people can't have mental health issues or they can't have, some kind of psychological issues, but I'm saying that they definitely can have demonic oppression. Those voices can definitely be demonic. They can be oppressions. They can be possessions. We need to take it more seriously. We need to make it commonplace. It's not to say that science doesn't exist. It's to say, let's bring it back together again.
Yeah.
It was understood, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Your spiritual world was real.
Yep.
Yeah.
And suicide rate was a lot lower than it is now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
The devil's here to kill, steal, and destroy, right?
Yep.
And he is the God of this world.
That's it.
Why wouldn't it be an attack on anybody that's trying to be a light?
That's it. We walk in the flesh. We are not carrying warfare according to the flesh or using mere human weapons, For the weapons of our warfare are not physical, but they are mighty power before God
Amen.
to overthrow destruction of strongholds.
Amen. Yes. Our battle's not with flesh and blood, right?
That's it.
Principalities and powers.
That's it.
That's why we pray Ephesians 6, 10 to 17, 10 to 18, or 6, 6, 10 to 17 every day. The armor of God.
Yep.
I pray Psalm 91 every day. We got to get that into our daily life. We got to get that into our reality.
Absolutely. I don't think people, and I don't think it's intentional that people don't take it seriously. I think we are so programmed to not even bat an eye at it. I think we're so manipulated to just think that this is normal behavior, this is normal way of life.
Yep.
It's obviously, I mean, to me, I think it's a deception.
Oh yeah, I agree.
If you don't know what the problem is, or you can give it a fake diagnosis, it'll never get resolved.
And what better vessel for them to use and to drain dry than somebody that you're not going to listen to anyway. And I don't know why we're not more bold. You look at these movies, how blatant it is. It's demonic. It's satanic. You look at our government. And look at world government. Look at what's allowed.
Yep.
Satanic, cultish, pedophilic. It's everywhere. And if they can make music videos so boldly, if they can make commercials so boldly, where is our spine?
That's it.
Exactly.
Yep.
Why are we not being just as bold for Christ? Because we win. We've read the end of the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why aren't we more bold? So I don't know. That's just my personal battles, man. I gotta get out there more.
Yeah. I think that's something that we were doing a recording on. I forget what I was. Lowell went on some rant. We haven't released the episode yet. Lowell went on some ridiculous rant about a person that has a website in regards to his research.
No.
And he just went like off the rails about this guy. And I was trying to reel him in. But at the end of the day, Lowell was like, man, it's our podcast. Who cares? Like, I'm sick and tired of, I mean, pardon the expression, but pussyfooting around it. Like,
yeah.
I thought, you know what? You're darn right.
Yeah. I think this show will be 3 years in May. I think is what it is. For the first 2, I was like, well, I don't want to. Maybe I shouldn't, push too hard about. I shouldn't bring God up in every episode, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't say that maybe you could rebuke that, that abduction experience. If it happens again, maybe so and so is going to listen to it. Maybe for the next time I go to that convention, so and so won't talk to me. Why would I care? But I did. I let it hold me back. Episode 1, I said I'm a Christian. It was horrible audio, and it's not like I screamed it into the mic. But I said it. It's like, but so the world knew what they were getting into. Episode 1, but I held it back, man, forever until things just got too obvious. And Jesus is like, all right, sit down. you know what I mean? I'm taking over. But yeah, I know you're slow to call everything demonic, but I don't have much choice at this point. It seems like there are so many things, and I'm not trying to call everything demonic. There is room for other kind of spirits and elemental things and things that I don't understand. But when people are abducted by aliens and they rebuke it in the bedroom when they're surrounding the bed and they look like grays, and they rebuke it and they leave. Or if there's a dog man behind your truck and you're out there trying to change a tire and you look up and you rebuke it and it leaves. When you have some black entity sitting on your chest and you wake up and you can't move and you can't breathe, but you can get the thought of in the name of Jesus Christ and it leaves, everything starts to look like it's connected, man.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
It all responds in the way that demons respond. They tremble at the name.
That's the slope I've been on. We started this off, and I told Lowell a couple of weeks ago, it's like, man, we walked into this, and I said, man, not everything can be demonic. But then I told Lowell a couple of weeks ago, I was like, I don't know. It starts to seem a little bit like everything's demonic.
It's a little demonic, man. You know?
I know. I'm a big cryptid guy, so I'm like, well, maybe Bigfoot's not demonic. Like, can we just have like a giant something
come
out
on,
there walking
Bigfoot.
around?
Just give me Bigfoot for crying out loud.
Yeah, I would love that to be the case. And I don't know. I haven't heard of anybody rebuking Bigfoot yet. I don't think
that's true.
But his tracks end in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, there was with Wes Germer when he talked about the Two Brothers episode. He brings up a lot. There was they had was it a priest or someone out there who had prayed over their home, and it had stopped the Bigfoot from coming on their property.
Scott Carpenter talks about that a lot too.
Yeah,
he goes out to people and prays over their property, and the Bigfoot stopped coming around and harassing them.
Who does?
Scott Carpenter. He does a YouTube channel. Actually, I haven't seen much from him anymore on that note, but he did what was it called, Lowell? Bigfoot genome study.
Yeah.
Okay.
With Dave Paulides.
Okay.
From Missing 411. Christian guy. I think he's from Tennessee.
Yeah. Not that I'm stalking him or anything.
I'm gonna write his name down. Maybe I can look him up too.
Yeah, he seems like a really cool guy. But he talks about them being Nephilim or like a descendant of the Nephilim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of very compelling research on his part. So okay.
I think one of the best things that I saw of him, he would put a GoPro backwards on his shoulder, so as he's hiking through the woods, he would catch him peeking at him. Bigfoot. Yeah, and some of it to me kind of looks like pareidolia, but there are some where you can see the eyes blink and it ducks back.
Nice.
So it's worth checking him out.
I'll definitely do that. And I'm sorry about that. I hit the mute for a second and then I tried to take it off and I don't know what I did, but
you're fine. You're fine.
I suck at technology, man. Like I'm like one step above a caveman here. But yeah, on the whole Nephilim Bigfoot connection, have you guys listened to it's like a trilogy of episodes I've done now with this lady named Denise in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I forget what she called it. It's a name I can't pronounce. And
Eliud.
Eliud, that's what it was.
Eliud. And it was the offspring of a Nephilim. You know, so you got fallen angel, Nephilim, Eliud. And this lady, I don't know if you remember our first episode or two, she wasn't real up to date on all this information. You know, she said she don't know, like when she told me that it told her it was an Eliud, she wasn't sure how to pronounce it. She wasn't sure she's going to get the word right. And whatever this was told her to read certain books, you know, to check this information out. Me and Denise are still in contact. Like,
really?
Oh yeah, we talked like last week or 2 weeks ago. It's an ongoing thing.
Oh my goodness!
But man, does that not lend some credence to
absolutely
the whole thought? You know, because my point with that is she's not trying to concoct this big story. This information came to her.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm. Makes it a lot more compelling that way.
yeah, she hadn't done the research that L.A. Marzulli had done,
Mhm.
on all these topics for decades. She's just like, hey, this thing popped up. I call him Harry, but he told me that he's an LEU. It's like, okay, very specific.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, is there anything that we didn't get to discuss that you guys would want to hit tonight?
Lowell?
I don't know. I could go on for hours.
Yeah,
about
we
anything,
really
so.
could. No, I mean, those are our personal experiences. I mean, it's an ongoing battle. Again, this won't ever stop until we're absent with the body and present with the Lord. And these forces are getting louder. They are getting braver and bolder and more acceptable. I mean, I just posted on our Instagram yesterday I was blown away that they put this statue in New York City of, I didn't send it to you yet, Lowell. I should, of this woman with ram horns for hair.
Oh, yeah.
Have
Ruth
you seen
Bader
that?
Ginsburg.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's bronze. It's
Mhm.
like, and then you look up that Baphomet statue that they put in Oklahoma City, bronze. And I thought, what are the odds of this? Do people not understand what this is?
Yeah.
This is exactly what happened. And
Mhm.
the Bible says it's going to happen again, and it's happening right now, and it's acceptable. These, the Egyptians thought that these bronze statues housed spirits. They actually had a ritual of the opening of the mouth so that the spirit could go into these idols. Because growing up, I thought, man, they're just, what a bunch of idiots. They're just worshiping a statue, but no, there was spiritual credence to these things. I thought, do these people don't even, Father, forgive them for they don't even know what they're doing right now.
Right. Or they do.
Or they do, and they're just pushing it further, which either way, I mean,
Right.
These are dark times.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I'm with you on all that. But remember what happened to the statue of Dagon, right? When the Ark of the Covenant got too close.
That's it.
So again, we win. It's
That's
just
it.
It has to happen. It's going to be like the days of Noah. That's got to include the Nephilim, right? That's it. That's got to include the bad guys. So,
yep.
Man. Well, guys, I have thoroughly enjoyed every bit of this.
Oh, us too, Bo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for minding the Lord and reaching out. And I'm sorry that I had to cancel last week.
Don't be sorry.
24 hours ago, or 1 week ago, not 24 hours ago, I was down again with the flu.
Yep.
102-degree fever one more time. You know what I mean? There it was laid out. I'm getting used to it at this point. I think I just take it in stride and keep going.
We'll be praying for you.
Please do. And I'm going to pray for you guys too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'll put your name on the list. I have to write a list at this point, just so I don't forget anybody. I'm praying for like an hour at night now between prayers and reading. Yeah, tell everybody where they can catch your show. If you have anything coming up for the show.
We've got some stuff. Lowell that doesn't know. We've got a couple of people that I'm in contact with to come on. And I mean, I don't like saying for sure because people do drop out, but we've got some cool guys coming on. We have my mother-in-law came on the show last week. I'm editing that right now, so I'll probably release that soon. She had a pretty freaky story about I don't know what it was, demonic or aliens visiting her just a couple of weeks ago in her bedroom.
Wow.
And so I pested her enough to come on the show, but we'll be releasing that here in the next week or two. So we're just taking it in stride. But we're Silver Pill Podcast. I think we're on all podcatchers. we're on Instagram. So Silver Pill Podcast. But Bo, thank you so much for having us on. Like I said, this was like a bucket list thing for Lowell and I. We're getting all giddy about it. Man, we got to be on the bump. Like we listened to this guy for so long. I can't believe we get to talk to him. So thank you for having us on.
Hey, thank y'all, man. I've loved it, and I hope you guys, hope you'll come back on.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And
Oh,
you likewise on our show. We'd love to have you on and just talk more. I mean,
Done. It'll happen.
Awesome, perfect. We'll work something out.
Hey, brother. All right, man. Well, y'all have a good night.
Yeah, you
You too.
And
Godspeed, Bo.
God bless.
All right.